There we go. Welcome everybody to episode 3 of the After Swim Show. My name's Andy. I thought you were going to say hi, I'm Jay.
I was. You beat me to it. I was going to say I'm actually feeling a bit under the weather at the moment, so Andy's probably going to do all the speaking.
I've been under the weather.
Well, we both have. We'll explain why later.
My name's Andy Donaldson.
I'm Jay Rochelle. How are you?
And welcome, very much welcome to the show. Gosh, where do we begin?
Oh, we've got a bit to get through today. So Firstly, welcome and glad to have you here. And we look forward to sharing these stories and experiences with you, and it's what it's for.
Exactly. So After Swim, the show that replicates the conversations that are had after a swim, is the things like how we're feeling, how was it, advice, tips.
Anything that's kind of happened in the open water world. Events, experiences, people doing amazing things, lots of stuff.
So, Jay, before we kick off, what have we got in store for the guys today?
Wow, we've got a fair bit actually. There's surprisingly a fair bit of stuff going on in the Northern Hemisphere as well as the Southern Hemisphere. So, we recently just had the Rottnest Channel Swim, which was on last weekend, so we touched on that.
We'll delve into that. We'll cover the news that you were mentioning, so we'll get into that in a second. One of the main topics for today is the role of the support crew. That was something that I think you were very passionate about talking about. Considering your experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And with everything that's happened over the last week or weekend as well, there's a lot to speak about in terms of setback and disappointment. So we'll touch on that as well.
So, an exciting show. Shall we get stuck in?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
What's been happening this week? There's been some really cool stuff, actually, surprisingly.
It's been pretty amazing. And how about we kick off with the Coal Classic here in the Southern Hemisphere?
Yeah, so New South Wales. It is New South Wales, yes.
Sorry. It is. It's Sydney. I'm going to have to cover a wee bit here today.
The Coal Classic. So we touched on this last week. It's a really, really, great event, especially from a charity's perspective and the amount of money that they happen to raise. And they had a target of $300,000 this year. They didn't quite make it, but they still raised nearly $250,000.
Incredible amount of money. And look, when we think of these types of swims, they happen every year. If this is the amount of money that they're raising for these charities, these incredible causes, and that happens year on year, and most likely just continues to grow and grow as these events become bigger and bigger. That's a sizable amount. That adds up over.
And the sponsorship, the fundraising aside, I mean, it's a great initiative to get people out there and active in doing some things as well. So just keeping healthy and fit. Yeah,
absolutely. And if you do want to check out that swim, we will put the details, the social media, the links in the description below. But as you can see here up on the screen, it's not a bad spot, is it?
No, it looks beautiful. And I mean, they're getting 5,500 people at that event too, so it's pretty impressive.
Absolutely.
It just looks majestic, doesn't it?
Well, that's Manly Beach.
Yeah. I haven't actually been there, so I'll need to get across there, either for the event or just to go and have a bit of a peeky boo.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, if you can see, for anyone watching, you've got the GoPro. This is like a first-person view of running into the start.
That's cool.
That is just spectacular. There at Manly Beach, it looks.
Look at them all. Jeez.
Looks incredible. It looks like great weather as well, which is really fantastic to see.
That's awesome.
A bit closer to home, this was happening in my own world where I was actually invited to speak at one of the schools here in Perth, Christchurch Grammar School. They were turning 116 years old. They were celebrating 116 years since setting up, and I'd been asked to speak because we'd used their school pool for a charity fundraising event back in October for telethon, and the staff were really keen to get me to come and speak to all the boys. It turned out to be 1,800 of them in total, which was a little bit petrifying.
I was going to say, how did you feel standing up in front of so many people?
I mean, you swim across oceans, you take on challenges during the night, but I think I was more nervous speaking in front of all these kids. Like
I was going to say, because we're quite comfortable in this environment, but yeah, when you're standing on stage and looking at the faces of 1,800 people, it can be a little daunting.
It's massively daunting, and you know, for me, it's like you tell everyone to be resilient and to pursue their goals and like
And
not to show any fear, and I'm just like, I'm absolutely crapping myself. So, but it was really, really special. It was a great opportunity to talk about setting goals here in the Southern Hemisphere. The kids have just come into a new school year, so that was a topic that my good friend Travis Nerapel, who works at Christchurch Grammar School, is a dual Olympian. He'd suggested get the kids starting to think about what they could be targeting and why does it matter and what can help you get from here to there. And
because as a young kid at school, I mean, I don't know if you had this, but I certainly did, is I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was a case of my goal was finish year 12. That was it. And then beyond there, I had no real idea. I mean, was I going to go and do further studies? Was I going to get a job? Was I going to go to uni? Like, I don't know.
It's hard to know, and I talk to them about choosing something that matters to them, not something. No offense to the parents out there, but not something that their mum and dad want them to do, but something that matters to them. And like swimming, who can support you through this? Who's your support crew? Which is a topic that we'll cover a little bit later. And finally, how can you break it down so that it's manageable? These huge goals can be very overwhelming when looked at as a whole, and can we break those down into manageable chunks to make it a lot easier along the way? And I think we'll quickly move on in a second, but one thing that really struck me, like there was a lot of boys that came up to me afterwards and said how much they really appreciated the speech. And there was a kid in particular, his name was Lucas, a young kid, must have been about 10 or 11. And after this speech about goal setting and pursuing something that's special to them, he came up to me and he said, Andrew, I don't know what goal to set because I'm not good at anything.
Oh, wow.
I'm not good at anything. And
That's almost heartbreaking to hear, isn't it?
It was heartbreaking to hear. He was a young kid, I think maybe aged around 10, and my heart's crumbling a little bit when I hear him say that. But I said to him, well, Lucas, what do you like doing? And he perked up and he's like, oh, I love being outdoors. I was like, yeah, what do you enjoy about the outdoors? He's like, I love being on my bike. I love running. I was like, well, why don't you set a goal in relation to them? And he's like, yeah, that's a good idea. I was like, look, when I started swimming, when I first got in, I wasn't any good. In fact, I couldn't do front crawl, I couldn't do breaststroke, I couldn't do butterfly, I could only swim one stroke, I could only do backstroke. And yeah, I stuck with it because I loved it. I didn't have goals to break world records, didn't want to make the Olympics, I just was enjoying myself, and in time I got better. And it's that sort of loop where you're good at something, you do it more, you get better at it, and then you enjoy it more because you're getting better at it, and so forth and so forth.
Well, what's really important as well, and what I'm hearing from your message, is especially doing these things, getting better and better, gives you that personal confidence as well, and that's so important for anybody really, but especially as a youngster. There's so many kids out there at the moment who just aren't sure of themselves and aren't confident. So wise words.
Wise words.
Of swimming
moving on.
In Morocco.
Volume down a bit here.
Anytime you're welcome in Morocco. You're welcome in Canada.
Just going on this one. This is a team or a guy in Morocco who's talking to the team surrounding him, the camera as well, but actually talking to Andy.
Many events happening in Morocco, including Agadir, Tangier, Nador,
from Morocco and Africa. It's not a place that I would have even expected.
Associated with open water swimming. This gentleman here, Abdul Latif Amzo. Yeah, very, very kindly. I don't know if you would have been able to hear that, but very kindly, just reaching out to myself, to Jay, inviting us to come to their country, to come and swim with them, to any events that are on where they are. And the reason I wanted to show that was there's such a huge open water community spread around the globe, and you just don't know where they are. But again, you don't know who you're reaching as well, which is just
Well, and this is one of
quite inspiring.
this is one of the reasons why we wanted to do this show, is because there are all these people in these, I'll say, weird and wonderful locations. Obviously not to them, but to us, because being in Australia and Europeans and Americans, we tend to love the outdoors and the open water, but it's not somewhere that I would have ever expected, like Morocco, Egypt. There's some fantastic events which we will talk through in later episodes, but even in Morocco, I know there's a couple of really, really big events, and you've been to one as well.
Morocco Swim Trek is one there. I did the swim across, well, we were there.
Yep.
Straight to Gibraltar, so I've touched Morocco.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I don't think I can tick that off in my scratch map. But
there's just there's lots of these phenomenal places that have these events, and they're huge in their own right, but we don't typically hear about them.
So, like you were saying, it'd be great to connect with these guys, with you out there. Please share what's going on in your world, because we want to know about it, and we want to shine a light on it as well, and get this global open water community far more connected.
Yep.
and do our small part in that mission.
Absolutely.
Moving
on to another point.
Moving on.
Now, a gentleman that we've both had the pleasure of meeting. So Ivan Puskovitch, he, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was in the Olympic team
for
the
Paris 2024.
in the 10K open water.
In the 10K open water, and it looks like he's had a crack at the ice mile, which, for anyone that hasn't come across this before, is swimming 1.6 kilometers in waters of under 5 degrees Celsius, which swimming 1.6 kilometers is hard enough as it is already. Never mind in those
Try to do it in near freezing
sort
conditions.
of temperatures, and it looks like he's had a phenomenal result there. Ivan, I think he's in his early mid-20s. Look, as we can see here on the screen, and his captions there's 20 years of competitive swimming and still finding new ways to challenge himself, which is phenomenal. So, in our episode 1, we reported on the European Ice Swimming Championships. Now you've got guys at the peak of their career taking on these challenges. And I know, the guys at the international I'm stopping up my words. The overall body of ice swimming, Ram Barkai and all the guys there, I know the long-term goal is to get this into the Winter Olympics.
Yeah,
and so
that'd be fascinating.
I would love to see that as well.
Well, and I think it deserves to be in there too. I mean, you look at the physical challenge, but also the mental challenge as well. I mean, he's freezing.
He's freezing. This is the after drop, and you've got Joseph Cowell there helping him out. There's a real community in the ice swimming world that we don't really we've only dipped our toes in there. We know some people that work across both disciplines of the ultra marathons and the ice, but certainly a space that we'd love to get to know more as well.
It's certainly a discipline in its own right. So it's
what we've got on the screen here is just a couple of the quickest ice miles in history, and not that it's all about the elites and speed, but it's just a fantastic. Well, it's a resource that I think if anyone's interested, they can go down here and see who's done one. Check out their times, where they did it, what the temperatures and the conditions were like, because it's pretty fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, and not that it's always about the fastest times. I mean, that's interesting, yes, but it's also just the challenge, and even some of the countries that are getting involved. There's some countries that you probably wouldn't expect to be involved in ice swimming, and
Prabhat Kohli from India.
Yep, just amazing.
Australians, it really is a sport for everyone. So we'll be continuing to watch that space. I hope it just continues to grow and grow, and great to see the likes of Ivan involved in that event.
Absolutely. Now, some place that we have been, that we have seen before, and we have had the privilege of being involved in, but it's been done again.
Probably a bit warmer as well.
Yeah, a lot warmer, going from cold to hot.
Yeah, over in Bahrain. So Bahrain, for anyone that doesn't know, is an island just off the coast of Saudi Arabia. And our friend Abdullah Atiyah swum 45 kilometers in 22 hours to get across this channel. Abdullah, he's the president.
So it was from Saudi to Bahrain.
Saudi to Bahrain.
Yep.
And going off the track, that looks like there was some pretty gnarly conditions and
Like
currents going on there.
somewhere. Yeah.
We've, for anyone that can't see this, we've got Abdullah's Strava track up on the screen here, and there's a lot of squiggly lines. It looks like something my nephew might have drawn. You know, it's like trying to draw a straight line. Sorry, Hannah, my older sister. But 22 hours. That is, you know, regardless of whether you're a swimmer or not, like that is a long time to be working non-stop.
Yeah, and we just talked about the cold, but being over there as well, you've got some other challenges. There's the water's quite warm. It's very, very salty as well. Now, Abdullah looks like he was wearing a wetsuit, so to have the wetsuit on for that long, there's chafing, there's sea snakes, there's other things, there's some bizarre stuff in the water over there. So it's certainly a challenge.
But yeah, fantastic to him. I know that their aspirations are to open that up a bit more and have more people doing it. Back in 2014, His Highness Sheikh Khalid did it first. Eric Watson did it in 2015 from Monterey up the road.
He's from Perth, but lives in Bahrain.
That was my first ever experience of a channel swim all the way back in 2015, so I've got a connection to it. Then last year, Mariam bin Laden did it.
We were out there for that. That was impressive.
Which was incredible too. And we did the swim around Bahrain, which was an amazing experience. So let's keep tabs on that part of the world. It's interesting.
And they're looking to raise their profile too. So they're trying to get on the world stage, which is another reason why they're doing some of these challenges.
Which is fantastic to see. And talking about events, we were supposed to have a big one.
I was going to say we were meant to have a big one on the weekend, but we didn't
until this sadly happened. So can you maybe explain what happened here?
Look, leading up to Rottnest Channel Swim last weekend, we were looking at the weather, or not just we, everybody was looking at the weather, and 5 to 6 days out, it was not looking good, and every day that got closer, it just got worse. And eventually the call was made on the Friday before, thankfully, that they had to abandon the event and cancel the event. So the conditions were not looking very good. I think it was forecast to be something around 22 to 24 knots of wind at the start. And I think when we actually got there, because we managed to get over there the day before, we made the call early to not participate. But when we got over to the island on the Saturday, I think it was actually worse than was forecast.
Yeah, I'll see if I can bring this up. This is from Eleanor from eSwim, and for anyone that's watching and they can see this is video footage from the ferry on the Saturday morning, and man, that is a washing machine.
And I believe the ferries were cancelled for a few hours after this was taken because it was just too rough for them to get across. So there was no chance that anyone was going to get over there, and it just would have been quite, dangerous.
That's it. So I think right call was made to cancel the event. Safety really has to always come first. As heartbreaking as it is, but the island will always be there. The event will always be there. I know it wasn't what people wanted, but there'll be the opportunity to get up and go again, hopefully. So.
Yeah, absolutely. But we managed to get over there and we had a little bit of fun. We were enjoying ourselves. We got over there on the Friday afternoon. We had some, memorable moments. So there's always positives to come out of these things. And we got to enjoy a lovely weekend at Rottnest.
Yeah, so for anyone that can see the footage, there's a picture of us with Natalie Polk. She was over from Germany. Rob Woodhouse, the Swimming Australia CEO and Ocean 7 finisher. He was there, I think, for his first ever Rottnest Channel Swim in a team with the likes of Dean Peters and a few ex-Australian Olympians. So, obviously devastating that he couldn't experience it alongside many others.
And those conditions look absolutely tranquil. But I guarantee you they were not. Like we were just lucky that we were in some protected bays. That's one of the beauties of being at Rottnest.
Yeah, so we got across on Friday. We managed to see the finishing arch all set up, ready to go.
We got to run through the finishing arch.
You want to show that?
Yeah, so look, it's always important to have a little bit of fun. So we managed to run through the finishing arch, and the day before.
Yeah, the day before. So bit of context here.
Yes.
Last week we showed some footage of Max Coton running up the finishing arch. Max, one of our teammates, he'd won the Rottnest Channel Swim in 2025. Absolutely emptied the tank and, you know, basically collapsed on the finish line. So we thought we'd have a bit of fun.
Yeah, well, yeah, we did.
We did have a bit of fun.
Recreating Max's finish.
Cue the video. Let me just get the volume up.
Yeah, we got. Oh, okay. All right. We've got the winner of the 2026 Rottnest Channel Swim, Andy Donaldson,
Max's finish.
coming through. He's had a hard swim. Oh no! What's he done? Oh, Andy. How was it? Difficult.
Oh, we couldn't help ourselves, and there was a couple of people watching who were laughing as well. But we just had a little bit of fun.
Yeah, and I said that off to Max.
Yeah,
he took it well. He found it funny as well, which is good. And you know, hopefully next year he'll get a chance to have another crack. And speaking of, before we move on from the news, there was one other person that wanted to say a few things. This guy here over from Italy, Gregorio Paltrinieri, the Olympic champion.
Looks cold.
He looks a bit cold.
Andy?
Yeah.
Ciao, Andy. See you next year, hopefully.
Oh, cool.
Our friend Jane Wishaw picked up that one, gone down to the beach and grabbed him for a few words. And look, you heard it there first.
Oh,
maybe Paltrinieri is going to be back, and we'll see him next year. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, what's next?
Moving on.
That's it for the news.
That's it for the news. Shall we dive into the main set? All right. So every week we have a main set, which is our deep dive for the week.
Yeah.
We choose a topic. It could be to do with events. It could be to do with particular people, advice on a particular thing. And I suppose inspired by the lead up to Rottnest and the conversations that we were hearing during the uncertainty, particularly with the weather and the cancellation, we thought we would talk about the role of the support crew.
Yeah, we were getting lots of questions, specifically about what to do, how to take control of the situation, and it was more around the swim. But what became apparent was this is a team, this is a collective decision. So we wanted to delve into who that team is, what the roles are that they perform, and how critical that team is, because these are never solo swims. It's always more than one person.
Well, that's it. And when people say I'm doing a Rottnest solo, it's the furthest thing from that. It's always, where do you start? You start by putting together your team, assembling the right people. And I suppose what we want to delve into is, well, first, like, who's on the team?
Yeah.
And then how do you get an effective team, essentially? Like, how do you maximize it so that on the day you're all performing to your best?
And I think when you look at the team, if we take a step back and look, I'll mention this over and over and over again, it always comes back to what's your goal. Because your goal will determine who needs to be a part of your team. Are you looking just to participate, just to finish, or are you looking to, break a world record? So those goals will quite strictly dictate who's going to be on your team, and then the caliber of people that are going to be on your team as well.
Well, just before we kick off, we need to recognize here, there's a team for every day, and there's a team for
Good point.
On race day. The team for every day, people like your coach, your strength and conditioning coaches, masseuse, it could be a nutritionist, your family, because they're all invested in this journey as well. What we're going to be talking today, I think, is more the team on race day. So perhaps, Jay, do you want to explain, well, who's out there in your own role as well, in particular in relation to my own swims? Yeah,
look, we obviously have the swimmer. So without the swimmer, we're... What do we have?
So having a good time in somewhere like Rottnest Island.
We've also got to have the skipper, who, well, we won't go into the roles yet, but we've got the skipper. We generally have a paddler as well for a support person. Now, this will be dependent on the event as well, because some events you don't require a paddler and some you do. you will generally have let's call it the handler or the support person. You will sometimes have an observer on the boat as well. And then you may have one or two additional people that will either facilitate one or another of those roles. And as a spotter is another valuable role as well, especially with something like a Rottnest swim where there's so much going on. You do need, or the skipper does need a hand trying to keep eyes on everybody else, because one of us is looking at the swimmer, but who's looking at other people and other boats?
So if we were to delve into each of them very briefly, what are their roles? Because for someone that's never done this before, yeah, who are they? What do they do?
I'll reverse that order, right? So if we look at the spotter, which I just mentioned, so keeping an eye out for everything else that's going on in and around the boat. So they're like the skipper's second pair of eyes and ears. That role can also help some of the others, like the handler or the skipper and whoever else is there, or even the paddler.
Well, it's like a responsibility. So you might have someone taking on multiple roles. It depends how big your boat is, how many people you want on there, because you don't want it too overcrowded. But for example, in terms of spotters, you mentioned Rottnest, which I think is key because you've got the swimmers starting off the beach. There's a lot of boats, and it's very hard. You need someone dedicated to finding that person as they reach the 1K mark, where everyone's meeting, and there's a lot of people, a lot of arms, a lot of kayakers.
Yep. Well, the skipper's otherwise occupied because he's driving the boat, trying to keep it away from everybody else and in a safe position and away from other swimmers and vessels.
But we also had a spotter in the North Channel.
We did, for jellyfish of all things. If those who might not be familiar with the North Channel, it's quite famous for the lion's mane jellyfish, and some of them can be quite large in size. I've heard the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. No.
That is not.
Well, that's what I've heard.
Well, I think the tentacles can be like 10 meters long.
Yeah, they're huge,
but they're not like a freaking Volkswagen.
Well, they're not being told a lie.
But like. No,
but they are big. That's
the stuff of nightmare. It's like we want to encourage people to get into swimming, not detract them and let's scar them for life.
Okay, let's go away from
something the size of a kraken.
Let's go away from urban myths. What we have seen is they're the size of a dinner plate, and a big dinner plate. Yeah. They're quite large, and that's just the jellyfish part, and then there's the tentacles.
Well, on my North Channel, we had Jerk Kennedy from Ireland, and he would come up to the side of the boat and he'd have a whistle in his mouth, and I'd be breathing up to my left and looking up and thinking, please do not blow this whistle. Like a whistle basically meant you're headed straight for it.
So it's basically an alarm to say divert course whichever way, because you're going for a head-on collision.
Because those stings, they burn. So that's a role that I think people maybe don't think about so much, but it certainly has its benefits and its uses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Particularly in a swim like that.
Yeah, and I suppose moving on from that, you've got the other role is the handler. So typically the role I would probably perform when I'm on event. So my core role is looking after Andy and Andy's needs, or whoever that swimmer is that I'm supporting. So be it from a nutrition perspective, information, making sure that I'm getting some information from the swimmer, and also relaying that information back, but also from a psychological perspective. The swimmer, when they're in the water, they're quite isolated. So, as you can appreciate, you're in the water, so your vision is slightly impaired, your hearing is definitely impaired, and some of your other senses are impaired. So really having a good connection with that person in the water is paramount to having firstly a successful swim, but also an enjoyable swim. You can kind of make or break the event in some cases.
I would say out of everyone, the handler probably has one of the most important roles, because like we were talking about last week, marathon swimming, they say is 80% mental, 20% physical, and the handler's really keeping you physically fed, but psychologically fed as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're giving you all the information that you need to know as a swimmer to make your decisions.
And in some cases, the paddler can be that second most important, if not the most important as well, depending on the role and the event that they're.
The paddler, you might be feeding off the kayak versus off the boat, or you might be following the paddler instead of the boat, which is the skipper. So
that might be the person that you're looking up at every time you take a breath in most cases.
yeah,
So having somebody there that's cool, calm, collected, having a bit of a laugh, having a smile on their face. You know, if you can imagine if you were looking up at somebody who was anxious and nervous all the time, how that might impact you. So
well, we'll go into that in a bit
Yeah.
more detail when we talk about effective teams, but it's so spot on. Like
Yep.
you've got to get the right. We can't emphasize enough. You've got to get the right people on your boat and
now who have I missed?
skipper.
Skipper, I'm going to bring in one other, team manager. So now that team manager might not necessarily be a dedicated person on the boat, but that role needs to be allocated to somebody. So other than the skipper, that's probably the most important person on your team because they will be making decisions for the collective. Now, they're there to make sure the plan's been undertaken as it was, planned out, making sure that everything's going right. And in a perfect world, that team manager actually doesn't need to do a lot. When they do come into effect is when
things go wrong.
Yeah, when stuff's hitting the fan.
Yeah.
So that's a person that you want on board that is not afraid to make a decision and not afraid to make a hard decision.
And knows the team plan,
Yep.
which we'll delve into a little bit more in detail.
And then just lastly, the skipper. So the skipper obviously is there to make sure the vessel is taken care of, is very, very, what's the right word I'm looking for? So in terms of the route, they're the person that is picking that route according to the plan. So theoretically, they are the person that knows the waters the best and knows potentially the currents or the landscape, whatever it might be. The most important thing that they do is safety. So from our world, the skipper is the person who makes any safety call. So if there's something that needs to be adhered to from a safety perspective, the skipper is the person that makes that call, no one else.
Yeah, and typically they're, like, if you're using English Channel as an example, they're the ones that are looking at the weather, they're looking at the tide, they're making the decision when to start, or if we pull the pin. So if we look through the lens of the Rottnest Channel Swim, a lot of the skippers were actually advising their swimmers, look, I don't think it's safe for us to be out there. Let's pull the pin and come back another day. So
Yeah. Have I missed anyone? I think that's it.
we've got supporters written down there as well, which we'll delve into, but they do also play quite an important role. But I suppose for a lot of people, say for example, if you're traveling and you've entered the Cook Strait and you don't know the people on the ground, that's what can typically happen. You haven't met the skipper before, you haven't met the support crew before. How can you meet those people, get them all on the same page, and have an effective team with essentially strangers?
Yeah, I think certainly in a lot of cases you may not even get to meet these people ahead of doing your event. So, if at all possible, well, let's go back a step. First thing, have a plan. Have a plan that you would like undertaken on the day as the swimmer. So I think that's the first thing that you can certainly write down and give to these people ahead of time so that there's some expectations that are being set. And once that plan is out there, the next thing to do, if you can, is try and schedule a call with these people, especially if you're flying in or coming into this location, or even if you're at home and you're doing a local swim. Meet up with these people and actually have a round table conversation and
have those questions, because
and even just as simply as getting to meet the people.
It works both ways. They don't know you.
Exactly.
So if you can get in touch beforehand, talk about what you hope to achieve. I know you said that just a second ago, like, what is your goal? Set the expectations, give them an idea of what's going to happen and what you want to try achieve, and then work together on that race day plan. Because once everyone's on the same page, once everyone knows what the direction and the goal is, once everyone knows their roles and responsibilities, it means that you're not guessing when you're out there. It takes that element out of it, and it means that on the day you can turn up and everyone should really know what they're wanting to do.
Well, I was going to add to that and say, as the swimmer, I want to make sure that I, as the swimmer, have the confidence in my team as well. And the only way you can do that is by sharing that plan, sharing the expectation, and see how the people kind of respond to that. Another
thing that is definitely worth considering is values. and I say this through the lens of particularly something like safety. So, say for example, if your goal is the fastest possible crossing and you don't really care about safety as much, then, well, actually, I shouldn't be
No,
saying
I was going to say,
that.
it's not that you actually don't care about safety, but it's put into context. So you might take some more, well, let's just say, more risks.
You might go
than
on a
if you were just
day,
participating.
yeah, you might go on a day that is not looking as favourable and chance, like, try your chances there. So, you know, I don't, that's not what I'd advocate for or suggest, but, you know, I think it's worthwhile making sure that you're aligned with that team around you, that these are my values, these are the priorities, and ensure everyone's on the same page there, because you want to be working with those like-minded people, otherwise there's going to be conflicts.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to make sure that when a decision is made, it's made for the right purposes.
Yeah.
You know, and being aligned. And as we said, you may take some more risks than you may otherwise do if you were there to just participate. So long as your team understands that and is, I guess, aligning with your expectations and outcomes, that's the main thing.
What we've got written down, and I'll ask you to speak to these, given your experience as a handler, potential supporters like family members and creating the right atmosphere.
I think having them on board, or
Oh yeah, like what are the risks? Like people that aren't.
Yeah. I know where you're going. But look, certainly, if I talk about family members for a moment, so sometimes having family members on your boat as a support person may work against you, and the reason why, not because they don't have your best interest in heart, it's actually because they have your best interest in heart.
They do, yeah.
And it might actually be detrimental to what you're trying to achieve. You know, they may react in a different way to a situation than somebody who has some experience in those environments and things that might occur. So
Maybe give an example, like yes.
Um,
Well, I think, you know, I know my
well,
my mum.
no. I'll give a really good one.
Yeah.
Probably not the thing that anybody wants to really talk about, but we have the little grey men in suits in the ocean, right? Sharks. So, well, I'd been on a supporter's boat one time where there was a sighting, and it was a long way away, but it had come over the radio, and basically we on the boat heard that call. So we were having a conversation, and one of the ladies that was on the boat was actually the sister-in-law of the swimmer. And her reaction was, oh, we've got to tell him. And I'm sitting there thinking from a swimmer's perspective, no, don't say a word. It's not an immediate threat. This threat is a long way away. It's just been called over the radio. It's not even confirmed right now. So there's a situation where a family member reacted in a different way to somebody who's been in a situation before, and probably from a different perspective, being my own as a swimmer, of what I would like to hear and what I would not like to hear. So that's kind of one scenario.
Yeah, I think that's really spot on. And you know, the atmosphere, that what you communicate is so important. Like as a swimmer, the times that like you have to decide what information to give to me, and it requires sometimes being objective, sometimes really knowing how this swimmer ticks. Like I know that there's been instances where you've told me that we're actually further ahead of where we are, and that's given me a boost.
I've told little white lies to get him moving.
But
they're done in context again. So that's where, from our perspective, you know, I've worked with Andy for quite a number of years, and I know how he works. I know what goes through his mind. So, you know, I utilize that to my advantage sometimes, and use that information to give him a boost if need be, with always the intention of correcting or making it right somewhere down the line. So, you know, I wouldn't do this, you know, just as a one-off. It's a really calculated decision about what information do I give and when do I give it.
I'll finish off with two more things before we move on to the next topic, but I think people that can handle the pressure is really important. I was on a swim where my paddler, she wasn't the right person for the role, very stressed. Every time I looked up, she was just, flustered. Admittedly, this was one of my first ever marathon swims, and it was the girl I was trying to impress. So I said that she could paddle for me.
This just sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It was just not good, and she T-boned me once,
Oh, no.
and was swimming all over the place, which paddling all over the place. So like that was a lesson learned, but I think that atmosphere, swimmers can feel it
Big time.
and they can read it. The body language, like all our other senses are dulled down, but we can read when people are not there. They're not having a good time, and ultimately not there for the swimmer first. But that's, I know it sounds selfish, but that the support crew need to be prioritizing the needs of the swimmer and making sure that they're there getting a success, like as much of a successful crossing as possible.
Well, you had a similar incident with one of your supporters. One of your, I guess, I'll say supporters that were on the vessel as well, didn't you? And that created a big problem.
In another swim, which I'm not going to go into too much details so that I don't hang them out to dry.
But these are just experiences that we have had.
Yeah, again, another girl I was trying to impress, and I invited her on my boat. It was raining. It was, churning with like terrible weather, and she's miserable. And I remember looking up every stroke. I was like, "Why did you come? Like, why are you here?" Like, I know why, because I invited her, but put on a brave face. Like, remember what our goal is. And I think she just thought it was going to be a sunny day and a day out on the boat, which was my own problem. I hadn't set those expectations, but it was certainly a lesson to learn. And I had another person on that boat. He kept jumping into the water so he could pee instead of peeing off the back of the boat, and that meant I was swimming without a support boat for a while.
Yeah, and you did you have a paddler in that one?
No. So these are, sometimes you have to have those lessons and experiences to know for next time.
Well, that would have been quite a risky scenario to be in too.
That was, but again, that's those values. Like, are they there for you, or are they there to just have a good time?
So what I'm hearing out of all this, Andy, is don't bring girls on board that you're trying to impress.
Well, we should move on, I think, in this.
I couldn't resist. I had to get that in there.
All right. We now move on to the weekly wisdom after swim advice, where we talk about tips, how-tos, insights for all levels. And again,
well, this is apparent from the weekend, especially.
Following on from the Rottnest Channel Swim, I think one thing we were really keen to delve into is dealing with disappointment and setback. So when something bad has happened, or when you've experienced a setback, or there's been an event cancellation, you haven't been able to swim, where do you start?
In the moment, it can be very, very difficult. And to be honest, in the moment is probably not where you want to start with trying to solve these problems. It's a conversation that I had with a couple of people prior to the event. And one of the things that I suggested to them, and I mentioned this in one of our previous episodes, is to actually go through a few scenarios. Let's just pick 3 scenarios. What is the best case outcome? What is the realistic outcome? And what is the worst case outcome? And actually going through that process, and especially that last one of that worst case scenario, actually thinking about that, and more importantly, feeling that one. So getting to a point of feeling it, viscerally feeling it, getting to a point of acceptance of that could actually be an outcome. And strangely enough, this weekend it happened, because the person I was talking to, one of the outcomes is you might not even get to swim. And being prepared from that aspect ahead of the game really puts you in a far, far better place if it does occur. And it's not that you want it to occur, but it's that if it does, that you're okay with it.
Yeah, and look, I spoke to quite a number of people after the cancellation of Rottnest, and there was obviously a lot of disappointment that there was no opportunity to swim, especially when you've worked so hard in the lead up. You've done everything right that's in your control, but you don't get that chance to step up and test yourself. But I think because of what you were saying, Jay, that people had almost gone through that scenario, played it out, and experienced those emotions, and like it wasn't catching them off guard. They were a lot more prepared for it, and able to respond in a far better way than if it just completely caught them off guard.
Well, and what we witnessed was when somebody hadn't gone through that process, it was apparent because the emotions came flooding out. There was tears, there was sadness, but there was also anger and frustration. When really this was nobody's fault. This is Mother Nature, right?
Yeah.
So, you can't hold any one person accountable, but yet these people had not gone through a process like that and were blaming themselves or blaming others, for something that's not their fault.
Yeah, it is hard. And look, I think that first step of acknowledgement and not fighting those feelings, because it is a disappointing thing. It didn't happen, or you didn't
worked so long for this one event.
It didn't pan out how you thought it would. You shouldn't shy away from that. I think it's, have you ever read the book Tuesdays with Maury? I think he talks about it in there. Like, you've got to really lean into those feelings, not try bottle them up, because that's even worse.
That's a whole other conversation.
You're right. It's a good conversation, though.
No, yeah, and you're right. And you've got to feel those feelings as well. I mean, it is important. It's the process of actually going through and getting those feelings, expressing them and getting them out as well. You don't want to keep them bottled up.
Well, I know you talk about thinking of a Coke bottle and shaking it up and shaking it up, shaking it up. You got to let off steam, and fortunately, we were able to do that in the weekend. We still made the most of it. Got over to Rottnest. We're able to spend time with friends and family.
Yeah, and I think the important part is that when you do have moments like this, there is always the positives that come out of it. So whilst many people didn't get to do the event, and that is, disappointing, what came out of it? What were the other things that happened? I know from our perspective, we got to spend a little bit of time with some people on the island, and we got to meet some people that we would probably ordinarily wouldn't have got to meet. They themselves had an opportunity to spend some time on the island and see the island, whereas normally they would have spent the whole day swimming. So there's a lot of positives.
Yeah, and when I think about it, when you do a bit of reflecting, which I think is an important step in it all, and you're looking at those positives, you've still done the work. That doesn't go away. You've still learned so much from the journey. You have met all these incredible people, had such an amazing experiences along the way, but they're all still yours. Yes, when it came to stepping up and testing yourself, you didn't get to do that, but I'm a big believer of who you become in the process. That's really what matters more. And like, we had an experience similar to this with the Ocean 7.
More than just one, a few.
Several experiences, but the one that comes to mind for me is we were trying to do all 7 of these marathons in the space of a year, and we got to the last one over in Japan, Subaru, and for whatever reason, the conditions that year were just shocking, and 13 people had tried it that year, all before me. I was the last to go up, and all 13 of them had
not succeeded.
And I remember us having that conversation before I went out, and you'd said to me,
well, and actually before you say that, there was a little bit of context, because all these people hadn't been making it. Andy was reading all these messages and seeing the news, and started to get into his own mind about, I had this goal, and he hadn't gone through that process of figuring that I might not get there. Andy was very staunch on, this is my goal and I'm going to do everything to achieve it. And, there was a moment there where the reality was quite different, and it looked like it may not actually eventuate.
And you had said to me, like, whatever happens out there, that's part of the story, which I'll always remember. So that was a very pertinent journey in my life, in our lives, I think. Luckily, we did go on to succeed in that swim, but we've certainly had our fair share of failures as well. And I suppose a question from me to you then is, how do you reflect on a failure? Like, what are the sorts of questions you'd be asking yourself if something's not gone to plan, whether that's in swimming, whether that's having a bad quarter at work? What do you do to pick yourself up and pick your team up as well and go again?
Yeah, look, I think it's important to reflect and debrief on what occurred, because there are always lessons to be learned, and looking at what went wrong, but also looking at what went right.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I certainly had a challenge in my very first port to pub swim a couple of years ago in 2023. I had my partner's going to hate me talking about this story. She's probably watching right now and she's like, no.
We see the numbers go down in the live viewers.
But, I made it a goal of mine to try and win that event. And I was leading by the halfway mark, and I had quite a substantial lead. And, I had a bout of medication, which I kind of had tested, but not properly. And anyway, long story short, that medication was to be my undoing, and it actually really slowed my pace to the point where I was now being overtaken by everybody. And for me, I was so disappointed. And every time I was breathing and looking up at the boat, I could see the people's faces on the boat. Their faces just sunk, because I was in first, and then I was in third, and then I was eventually in seventh, and I just fell way back through the order. And I had to kind of look at that event afterwards, and as much as I was disappointed in the moment, I thankfully had a little bit more time in the water to overcome that and go through the process in my mind whilst I was still swimming. But afterwards, I had to look at that and went, do you know what? 99% of everything I did went to plan.
Yeah.
It was the one thing that I hadn't tested that went wrong, and that was my undoing. So I learnt from that. I made sure that I didn't do that next time. And, I've had far better results. And not that I've won the port to pub, there's other reasons for that. But the important thing is I've stuck to my plan, and I stuck to the process, and I understand now that I must go through and test all these things beforehand and make sure that even if something does go wrong, I learn from that, because there's always something to be gained from a mistake. You don't learn anything by succeeding all the time.
Yeah, and I've heard so many amazing quotes from different people emphasizing that point. Like I think it's all right, Matthew McConaughey.
Oh.
He talks about if life's only green lights, you don't learn anything. Like, you need the reds you need the setbacks to not just learn, but to value the journey. If it was all easy, then you wouldn't really have an appreciation for anything. And last week we had up on the wall there, smooth seas don't make skilled sailors. Like, you need the adversity, those failures, those setbacks to become stronger. And a good friend and mentor of mine, professional speaker Glenn Capelli, he talks about what you need to reflect on. He calls it the 4 Ukrainians. What do we need less of, more of, rid of, and toss in? Glenn, I hope I've got that right. So less of, what do we need less of? More of, what do we need to do more? Rid of, what do we need to scrap completely? And toss in, what do we need to add that we're not already doing, which I think is a really good process and framework for that reflective process. So
yeah, that's really good, actually. I'll take that one on board. I mean, I've heard you mention it before, but yeah, it's a good way to look at things.
And then I think on a final note with setbacks give you confidence.
Yeah.
Like, once you've gone through that process, once you've learned, once you know what to do next time, then it means you go into the next challenge far more equipped. Confidence doesn't come from shouting at yourself in the mirror. It comes from doing and actions and all these experiences that you go through and you can ultimately learn from to take forward to next time. And so, those setbacks, they suck in the moment. What can we learn from them? How can we take them forward? And, for the case of Rottnest, there are more swims. There's Port to Pub coming up next month. There's going to be a Rottnest swim every year.
Yep. How did your training go? How did the process go leading up to it? There's all these things to learn, even though you didn't get to swim. How did everything else go? Because that swim is just the last part.
But I think it's so important to go through that process before you go straight on to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think so many people miss that.
You're right. And it do you know what? It actually forms part of the recovery process in my mind. And not that we're talking about recovery specifically, but yeah, it's kind of mental recovery.
Yeah.
Think of it like that.
I like it.
I just came up with that one on the spot.
Mental recovery. Well, it's a mental sport. You need to recover both physically and mentally. So
Absolutely.
this is part of that process.
Brilliant.
On to the next part. Q&A with Andy and Jay. All right.
All right. Yeah, good on you.
We've had a couple of questions. I actually haven't loaded them in here, so we'll just have to kind of talk about them. And not have them come up as banners, but the first one here from Raj is, what is your most underrated habit?
Are you asking me, or do you want to answer this one?
I'll ask you and then I'll give you my quick response as well.
I reckon I'm going to say consistency. So, from a sporting perspective, I think, or any perspective, be it sporting, life, financial, whatever, consistency is key.
Yeah, I think
Simple as
that's good. For me, sleep. I think in order to perform at your best, you need to recover as well as possible. Sleep is paramount to all of that. That means not just the number of hours you get, but the quality of your sleep, the regularity of it. Are you going to bed at the same time? Are you waking up at the same time? All of those things contribute to recovering well. So good for your brain as well, and allowing you to perform really at optimum levels.
Most underrated performance hack of all time.
I
I was going to ask you this one. So we've had this from, is it Brady?
Brady
So
K.
Brady asked us, so a book on high performance everybody should read. Have you got one that you're...
I don't read. No, I
He just
do.
watches
I just watch.
South Park and...
Can't you tell? I'm so wise. I think for me, there's so many incredible books out there. There's Atomic Habits. There's, I'm sure there's a lot more that are coming to my brain right now. But one of my favourites of all time is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I think the ability to work well with others, maintain good relationships, create high-performing teams, they're all incredible skills that allow you to achieve more than you could manage on your own. So, yeah, a key book for me.
Yeah, cool. For me, there was one called, there's several, but there's one that I always come back to, and it's called A Fool's Errand by a gentleman by the name of Roy Cook. So A Fool's Errand is actually an amalgamation of two other books, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and, the name of the other one escapes me. Anyway, the impetus behind the book is living your life by your values. And what the book effectively goes through is how to set your values, how to prioritize your values, and then basically live your life by your values. And you'll end up spending 80% of your time saying no to the things that don't align with your values, and the rest of that time just doing the things that align with your values and have a much more productive and fulfilling life.
Yeah,
perfect. So it's a brilliant book. Book. I recommend that.
That's perfect, actually. Yeah. One quick fun one here from Danielle S. What's your favourite drill in swimming?
One that I'm not very good at. It's called silent swimming.
Okay.
Now, why I say, have you ever heard of it?
No.
Okay, it's one that a friend of ours recommended to me. I'm a bit of a, shall we say, a slapper in the water. What I mean by that is when I bring my arm in, my arm slaps the water, and from the outside you can hear my arm slapping. So you're trying to do that silent swimming is effectively really, really slowing down the stroke and being very deliberate with your stroke, and do a nice silent entry, slow it right down, and just be nice and smooth and simple.
That sounds actually quite tranquil.
It's more difficult than it sounds.
Yeah.
We're normally just throwing the arms over and doing what we do without really giving it much thought. So this is a very intentional, very present kind of drill. So
maybe you should try silent snoring.
Okay,
silent sleeping.
We'd like you to know stories.
Okay. Quickly, my favourite is single arm drill, which I'm not going to go into too much detail, but really just emphasising isolating one thing so you can focus on your arm stroke, and maybe try to do that silently as well.
I'm still stuck on silent snoring.
Right, should we go to the cool down then?
Absolutely.
All right.
We're near the end.
This is the end of episode 3, and
oh no.
Yeah. No, we'd like to thank you guys for jumping on the journey with this one. We've covered a lot of cool things like the role of the support crew, the how to deal with setbacks and failures and disappointment, We covered quite a few things in the news, like the Rottnest Channel Swim, and all, even things in the Northern Hemisphere, which is a first for us. So
Yeah, exactly.
oh no, actually, no.
Well, not
ice
exactly.
cans.
But just the time of year it is here. You know, we're summer in the Southern Hemisphere, so, you know, to us it's actually quite novel and exciting to see that there's still stuff going on in the Northern Hemisphere. So, yeah, look, I hope you guys are enjoying this. We certainly are. I mean, if nothing else, we're doing this for a bit of fun.
Yeah.
You know, I hope that comes across, and we hope you're getting some benefit out of it. And yeah, by all means, please share some of your experiences. Get in contact with us. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the reason we're doing this is for the open water swimming community. The show is built around you guys. We want to hear from you. Let us know what you want us to talk about and speak on. And look at, like Jay was saying, if you really enjoy this, you know, consider sharing this with friends that you think might do that as well, or liking and subscribing to the page. It all really helps us to grow this. And
yeah, we want to shape this based on your experiences and your feedback as well. So that's really, really important to us.
Finishing note, words of the week.
I'll let you read this one. This is one you picked out. It's really good.
Okay, so this one is: your present circumstances don't determine where you can go. They merely determine where you start.
Explain.
Well, it's all about, yeah, bad things might have happened and you might not be where you want to be, but that doesn't limit or cap where you can go. It just means this is where I am now and I can still get there. I'm still going to have to work there, but this doesn't limit my potential. So
yeah, and I think a lot of people forget of all the hard work that goes in behind the scenes. People only ever see the moment in time where you're at. Like, for example, when you're at an event, they don't see all the work that goes on behind the scenes. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I think so. All right, team. Well, we're going to wrap up there. Stay safe, stay curious and connected. And until next time, team, thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching After the Swim.